Welcome to the DooDoo Diva Smells Like Money podcast. I'm your host, Suzan Chin-Taylor, CEO and founder of Creative Raven, the firm that helps wastewater industry contractors and manufacturers unlock the power of digital marketing, AI, and PR to boost sales and opportunities. Whether it's through our online marketing and lead generation programs or providing a fully outsourced marketing department, we are passionate about helping businesses in the wastewater and civil infrastructure sectors not just survive, but thrive in today's digital world. Each episode, I'll be bringing you expert tips and strategies to help you grow and succeed. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DooDoo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. We are continuing our series with Violand today with Scott Tackett. And this is a mouthful of a title. He is a senior advisor and director of organizational development with Violand. And for those of you who have not tuned into the prior episodes, Violand is a consulting group that specializes in helping organizations primarily and almost exclusively in the skilled trades businesses, such as plumbers and septic and everything related to the specialty contracting that we find in our industry. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon.
So that just a frame of reference and setting this up for what we're going to be talking about today, tell us a little bit about your role in Violand and how you work with your clients in the skilled trade business.
Certainly, I appreciate that. Basically, as a senior advisor, I manage a client base, and my responsibilities with my clients really encompass every aspect of their business. So I'm getting involved any given day, time, situation with a client. I may be involved in operational issues, sales and marketing issues, financial issues, HR issues, of course, the people side of the business, absolutely, and every aspect, and guiding and coaching and consulting as helping them to grow their business. Our whole mantra certainly is for enabling our clients to grow, continued growth, and help them reach the level of success that they've determined, not us, but what they determine they want. On the organizational development side, I work both internally because it is important for us to develop ourselves as business consultants, both our administrative staff, our sales staff, and our business advisors. So I work internally on helping them in their development individually and collectively as a team. And then I also work with organizations in areas that they might be looking for in terms of individual development programs, team development, executive leadership, and management. And so my role on the development side is both internal and external.
That puts you in a very, very unique position because you basically get, as we talk about when you go to trade shows, is that I'm working both sides of the aisle. I work with the exhibitors, but I also work with the attendees. And so you're having a very unique perspective to see, and especially from a client's point of view, to see what it's like to be in their shoes. Because you have to sit in that seat. You have to sit in that seat yourself as a business, quote unquote, kind of like a pseudo business owner. And so that makes this topic very interesting for me to have you come on and talk about it, because it's the thought of managing for accountability. And when we talk about accountability, we all hope that we're, within ourselves, that we're good people and we want to be accountable for what they do. But it goes beyond that. Not only your own personal accountability, but managers' accountability, supervisors' accountability, even the company's accountability to not just the employees, but all of the stakeholders. And so when you introduce this topic to us of managing for accountability, I thought, okay, this is a little bit of an interesting spin, because we're not talking about creating accountability or an environment of accountability. We're talking about managing for accountability. And so I want you to explain to our audience that subtle but very important nuance as it relates to a business.
Well, I really appreciate you recognizing that, because a lot of folks don't. And my intent behind that is to really create a true sense of the activity of managing this process. And so the managing becomes managing yourself as well as managing the folks that may be your direct reports, your team, your peers, and also managing above, because accountability applies from the top down. It's not a bottom up responsibility. So I look at this from the managing of managing for accountability to be specifically driven to 4 concepts. And my concepts associated with that really explain why the term managing for accountability came about in my training program. So I look at, we talked, how many times, and you said a minute ago, how many times do we use the word accountability? We got to be accountable. You got to be accountable. She's got to be accountable. They got to be accountable. He's got to be accountable. We got to be accountable. That is such an overused phrase today that I want to put it in context with the people. And how can we explain what that means, both from an internal perspective, being myself, as well as my team and the organization? So I look at, there are 4 components to managing for accountability. Okay. Number 1, in our industry, it is financial performance. We are in business to make money.
Yes.
Okay? And
profit if we don't is not money, a dirty word.
That's right. We're in business to make money, and we should never apologize for that. We cannot sustain our growth, take care of our people, provide the services to our clients and customers if we don't make money. Financial performance. Number 2 is customer satisfaction. In today's world, extraordinary customer satisfaction is the expectation. It's not the abnormal. 20, 30 years ago, when I was in business, extraordinary customer service was, well, maybe that happens every once in a while. Today, it better happen every day. The third component is processes, systems, and procedures. We have to set people up for success. And so managing for accountability means that I give people the tools and resources that they need to perform their job. That's my management responsibility. It's their responsibility to follow the processes, the procedures, and the systems. The fourth component is staff alignment and development. My job is to make sure that I've got the right people in the right positions and they're performing appropriately. So the managing for accountability becomes the tools and resources, making sure that I've trained people, I've developed people. Now I'm setting them up for success. And unfortunately, Suzan, I find in many organizations that I work with is that we have really good people, but they're just in the wrong job. We have not set them up for success. So Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, talks about the idea that you bring the bus, you line people up, you put them on the bus, but you have to make sure that they're in the right seats. So that's what managing for accountability really revolves around. My formula is very simple, but yet very, very difficult to ensure execution. But if you think about it from this perspective, so I take the formula of, from day one, I set the expectations for everyone that reports to me, everyone that I'm responsible for. Set those expectations and be prepared to reinforce those expectations as time goes on. Number 2 then becomes a part of the accountability of giving them the tools and resources they need to do their job. Okay. Number 3 is allow them to do their job. I've set the expectations. I've given the tools and resources. Let them do their job. Okay. But what is critically important is to make sure that they're performing at the highest levels that they possibly can. And so that means I reward and acknowledge good performance. That also means that I address poor performance. Accountability is making sure that I'm managing that process so that people know if they're doing a good job, they know. If they're not doing a good job, they know. I talk with I make a lot of on-site visits to clients' locations.
Right.
And I always want to talk to not just the owners, not the executives, not just the managers. I want to talk to the field people. I want to talk to the administrative staff. I want to talk to the business development. And I always say to them, I have 3 questions that I'm going to ask you. What do you really like about the company? What don't you like about the company? And what would you change? And no matter what part of the country I'm in, north, south, east, or west, no matter what the business that I'm working with, I constantly hear, I never hear from my manager unless there's a problem, unless they feel like I haven't done my job. And so that's not managing for accountability. And so what I say is, let's create that balance. And then the last part of that is that there's got to be ramifications for those behaviors, positive or negative. And that means reward them with more processes, more tools, more systems to be successful. Or unfortunately, there are times that we may have to get into managing discipline. And I talk about managing discipline, and I have a little bit of different twist on that factor. I talk about managing positive discipline. And people look at me, what do you mean managing positive discipline? See, discipline should be enacted to solve the problem and maintain the relationship, not to terminate people. Anybody can terminate anybody. I want to manage it to solve the problem and maintain the relationship. It's not punishment. It should not be punitive. It should be corrective. And so if we can gain that respect and that responsibility that is positive, people, I always say, prior to being in the consulting world, I say I had a real job. I worked for a manufacturing company for 30 years. And I say, in those times that as I was the vice president of human resources, I never terminated anybody. And they look at me and, what do you mean? I said, as long as I do my job, they terminate themselves. But that's not my job is to solve the problem and maintain the relationship. So that's where this term and factor of managing for accountability comes in play.
I really like some of the things that you touched on about, one, the expectations is that people don't know what they don't know, but also as an owner, those expectations need to be realistic, because if you don't equip them with either the training or the tools or the processes, like you were saying, it's not going to work. I remember I went to work years ago for a manufacturer in a consulting position, and they said, well, what do you need in order to meet the goals that we have? We all thought or assessed that this is where I want to be. What do I need to provide you to give you the best shot in helping me get from point A to point B? And so I said, well, I need this, this, and this. They came back with something in the way of tools, software, hardware that was double what I asked. And I said, well, I didn't need all this. Yep. And he said, I wanted to give you the best shot possible. He said, it's kind of like me. He says, the way I look at any hire, you're a skilled trade person, even though, it's in graphics, it's a skilled trade. He said, it's kind of like me wanting to build a new house, hiring a carpenter and expecting him to build the house and not giving him a hammer and nails.
Right.
How can I expect someone to perform and give me what I want or what I expect if I'm not giving that to them? But what I really love that you touched on was the discipline part, because I had another friend a contractor, he said, somebody messes up. We're only human. Instead of screaming at someone, ask them what went wrong. And if it keeps happening, to maybe say, you see, instead of yelling, why are you screwing this? You seem to be struggling with this. What's hard about, get into the dig of it of why is this so difficult for you? And it could be the fact that this is kind of silly, but the guy was left-handed, but the tool was only made for a right-hander. And so he's struggling to do something with his right hand, but he can't because he's not right-handed.
Yeah.
Something as simple as, that's maybe a silly example, but finding out, why is this a stressor for you? And like you were saying, my job is to find what the problem is, to correct it. And it could be something very simple where I'm trying to figure this out, but nobody's really showed me how to do this, or the instructions I got, I don't really understand. Okay, well, then maybe we need to get somebody else for you to shadow them and work with you and maybe give you a different way to approach that task that maybe will click with you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I just
Suzan,
love what you brought out about that of, it doesn't need to be end all, be all, my way or the highway.
Right, right. What I look at is that going back to the idea to solve the problem and maintain the relationship. I have found over my years that people don't perform basically for four reasons. I don't subscribe to the fact that they don't care. You may have a person or two that happens. I don't subscribe that they just don't care. I think that if I'm going to solve the problem and maintain the relationship, I have to get to the root cause. Right. And I found that there are four root causes why people don't perform. Number one, job knowledge. And what we tend to do in our industries and in our world is, we feel they got a pulse, they're breathing. Okay, you put a mirror under their nose, and we send them out in the field as quickly as we possibly can because we're going to lose work because if we don't have people in the field. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's job knowledge, aptitude. There are very, very good people in many, many companies who simply do not have the physical or mental aptitude to perform that job. The third reason is attitude. Attitude is a cancer inside an organization. And the fourth is outside influences. People are suffering from grief. They're suffering from divorces. They're suffering from addictions. And not a lot of people can leave that at the door. So it impacts their ability to perform. So our job is to figure out, not accept excuses, but figure out what we need to do to help set them up for success, going back to what we talked about, accountability. So if I'm conducting a discussion with you about your performance and you say, listen, Scott, I wasn't broken properly. No one told me what I was supposed to do. I don't have a job description. I've never seen a job description. I've not been trained. I'm not going to accept that as an excuse. What I'm going to say, Suzan, is, okay, I'm going to have you work with Mary. Mary is one of our best technicians, okay? And she's going to work with you, and she's going to work with you a week, 2 weeks, whatever it takes. Then when at that end of that period of time, Mary comes back and says, hey, Suzan is up to, she's up to speed. She's ready to go. Now I'm going to put you back into that position. And now I've removed an excuse. You can't tell me that you weren't trained properly.
Yeah.
And so we eliminate those excuses. And once we eliminate them, we will find that majority of people will not perform. The one exception to that is when you have an aptitude issue. And so if there's an aptitude, that's a very difficult situation, but you really only have one of two options. The one option is to find, not create, but find a position where that person's knowledge, skills, and abilities will fit inside the organization if you have that available. The tough part, Suzan, is if you don't have that position, you can't create it. Why? It goes to managing for accountability, financial performance. We cannot just create positions. So then that person has to be let go. But we do it with empathy and compassion for setting people up for success. And it goes back to one other, I don't mean to blabber on here, but one other point that you talked about, that you said about expectation. Another hat that we have to wear as a manager, supervisor, or leader is the CRO, Chief Reinforcement Officer. So
I like that.
When I talk with owners and managers and leaders, and I talk to them and they go, well, I told him 6 months ago. I told him a year ago. You got to keep telling. You got to keep reinforcing what those expectations are. and making sure that we're setting them up for success. Whenever I was in a situation where I had a difficult scenario with someone's performance, I would sit. The last thing that I would say to them is, "What do you need from me? What can I do to help you be successful?" Then I put it back on them because that's accountability. But if they tell me there's nothing I can do, okay, fine. But I open that door and hopefully we can come to an agreement.
Well, Scott, I just want to, bundle this up and end it on, for those companies that you have worked with that have gone through and decided to adopt what we've just talked about today of managing for accountability. What have you seen as the benefits or the takeaways for their organizations? Like what have been some of the, I would say, those aha or wow, I wish I could have done that. I wish I had done this sooner that you have experienced?
Yeah, great question. And it's a pretty simple answer because it's been consistent in my manufacturing days as well as my consulting days. Number one, financial performance. Engaged employees are more productive, and that doesn't come from me. It's the realities of the world. So, financial performance, a culture of engagement, a culture of people feeling a part of something, and they will perform unbelievably successful. So we have the financial performance, we have the culture of engagement. So what does that result in? Retention. It's not only today is difficult enough to hire the right person,
yes,
it's even more difficult to retain that person. So the retention is what we're looking for, retaining that. Once we do that, then we become the employer of choice, and the best and brightest come knocking on our door.
Excellent. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Because we have a reputation.
Yep, that makes so much sense. Is that you won't be the one that everybody wants to go work for instead of you begging, "Oh, please come work for me."
That's
and
right.
I know it is a serious problem in the skilled trades. It's that, in infrastructure and construction and wastewater treatment, water treatment, it's all across the board. It's just, people that can do these hard jobs, they're really hard to find. And so, Scott, anybody, that really sets us up nicely when you said that workplace culture, which leads to retention. It's going to set us up, no spoiler alerts here, but for our next episode, we're going to continue this conversation in talking about how do we lead to create a culture of change, a culture of change.
Yeah.
And so until we get onto that topic, for those who may be interested in what you do, and maybe they might need some help in what we're talking about today for accountability and managing for accountability, how can they learn more about your services?
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity. We're a full service consulting firm. So what our specialty is on management, executive leadership development, but we have our systems and the processes that we work with our people really revolve. And I don't want to sound academic here, but we use the Venn diagram, the three circles that intersect. And our philosophy with potential clients is to provide them the opportunity to say, we want to help you grow that sweet spot where all three circles, and as well as the business acronym. So our job works with those three: executive ownership, the people side of the business, the management, leadership, supervisor team, and even the technical people. Now, we don't do any technical training, but we work with the soft skill training, which is the hard stuff, Suzan. That's the hard stuff.
Yes, it is. Soft skills are probably harder to impart to any team than the technical skills. You can teach them the technical skills. Soft skills, different animal altogether.
All together. And then the other side is the business acronym to understand the aspects of business. So we work in those three. And in doing that, we work collectively on formal one-on-one consulting arrangements. We do specific programs I do a year-long program on management development. And my folks that are in my program And I make it a year-long program because you don't change behavior in an 8-hour seminar. You don't change behavior, in a 2-day program. So I have based the system, the management development program, on very similar format to what my master's degree. I have a master's degree in organizational leadership, and it's broken into 3 modules: the foundation, which is 16 weeks, the second level, which is the intermediate skills of both management leadership, another 18 weeks, and then the final advanced leadership. So I break those down, and we read books together. They have reflection papers to do. Then I have a lower level supervisory training program that is not as intense, and it would be more for a technician or field person who has just moved into a supervisory role or is planning on moving into a supervisory role, or someone that's been in that but no formal training. A lot of times we just simply promote someone because they come to work, they keep them, they're going to work on that. And we have other programs, and we work with projects. So our goal is to find out what the client needs and then tailor our expertise.
Right.
In sales and marketing, the whole gamut.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. As a marketer in this industry, is that, behaviors don't change and results don't happen in a couple of weeks, or like you said, 8-hour seminar doing something for a month. We have that rule that, in marketing, it's what's happening today is not related to what you're doing right now. It's related to what you did or failed to do 6 to 9 months ago. And some people are kind of like, wow, really? And it's like, if you stop what you're doing, you're not going to feel it immediately, but you're going to feel it about 6 to 9 months ago when that sales funnel starts drying up and you're going, okay, why isn't the phone ringing? Well, it's because of what you stopped doing or what you stopped working on many, many months ago. And so, Scott, I really want to thank you for all of your wisdom and, sharing when you're looking to do something like this, to really be prepared to put some time and investment into it, not just financial, but, time is money, of time into it. And that results are not going to happen overnight, but the long-term payoff for the business, you can't even put a price tag on it. And so thank you, audience. Thank you, audience, for tuning in, and make sure you tune into our next episode, where we're going to continue our conversation with Scott about creating a culture of change, which, just as we talked about, reinforces everything that we are building as a foundation with our organizations. And so until next time, thank you again for tuning in, and keep it flowing. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're ready to take your marketing to the next level and start increasing sales and opportunities for your business, reach out to us at Creative Raven. We're here to help you thrive in the digital landscape. Visit creativeraven.com or click the link in the show notes below to schedule a call and learn how we can support your growth. If you enjoyed the insights on today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you'll never miss an update. Until next time, keep growing and keep it flowing.